You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WYPC.
WCYTV here on the Daily Signal.
Good evening and welcome to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal, nationally syndicated first on 93 WIBC. Quite a bit to tackle this evening, so without further ado, the Supreme Court of the United States has ruled that while the appeals process carries out from the lawsuit by the ACLU, no, the Trump administration does not have to grant those who claim to be transgender, claiming to be the other gender, special magical letters for their passports. Meaning this, if you have an individual who really believes that he is a woman, he believes it so strongly, he goes out and gets a boob job, he tries to kind of artificially raise his voice up a little bit, and he shaves 3 times a day instead of 1 or 2. Well, then the Biden administration would say, well, have whatever letter you want on your passport. That's a problem because, in case you weren't aware, one of the key issues on national security is recognizing when someone is attempting to fraudulently enter the country by claiming to be something they are not. So what's likely to be a full 6-3 vote here. The Supreme Court, while the federal government and the ACLU go through the appeals process, because, you're not going to be allowed to just put whatever you want on your passport, kind of a serious document. Justice Jackson, Sotomayor, and Kagan, of course, they dissent because, Jackson can't even define what a woman is. The reaction is special. This is a man by the name of Zaya Parisian, complaining about the Trump administration's policy earlier this year.
In case you're wondering what it's like being transgender under this new administration, I just got my new passport in the mail and they changed the gender to male because of Donald Trump. In case y'all want proof, there's my picture, very cunty. And yeah, there's that big ugly M. Yeah.
Oh, there's a big ugly M.
May I just point out the fact he said because of Donald Trump. No, sir. It's because you're a man.
I do want to mention that the ACLU was fawning over this person when they posted this video. Again, the argument that transgender individuals are completely mentally healthy and there are no problems. A passport rule and immediately you just have an emotional breakdown on screen. Yeah, not making the case you think you're making. The other individual, I believe also involved in this lawsuit, Hunter Schafer, who starred in the one Hunger Games movie that nobody watched. The most recent one, I guess. I don't know.
It was a decent movie.
It was decent. Okay, great. Anyway, Hunter Schafer also with I guess, another boob job and failed vaginoplasty. Also, apparently, these are 2 individuals that operation did not succeed.
Lots of concealer.
Not weird situation. Here's this individual's freak out as well. This dude.
Today, I saw it on my new passport. Right, the Bureau of Consular Affairs has frozen passport applications requesting a gender marker change or renewals or new applications with a gender marker differing from an applicant's gender assigned at birth. So my initial reaction to this, because our president, is a lot of talk, was like, I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay.
Today, I saw it on my new passport mail. And I'm not making this post to fearmonger or to create drama or receive consolation. I don't need it.
That is exactly why they created this. So in this particular instance, yes, good on the Supreme Court, very common stuff. Moving on to the Department of Justice. The DOJ is preparing to send subpoenas for John Brennan affiliates in perhaps the U.S. District in Florida. I believe it's Southern Florida particularly. This morning was when I wouldn't say the rumor, but there were essentially some preparatory leaks, some pre-press statements that went out saying individuals associated with Obama's CIA director, John Brennan, The guy who, when intelligence reports came in and said, yeah, I mean, the Russians are actually sitting on information about Hillary Clinton on Quaaludes for her insane emotional breakdowns and rants. And they're not actually helping Trump. They're helping Hillary out here. Brennan threw that away and then went to his own source that he claimed was in Russia, was actually living in an apartment in Virginia at the time. Brennan ended up rewriting the entire thing. A major issue. Well, now there are a series of subpoenas that are getting ready to go out. When MSNBC's kind of legal expert, Ken Delanian, heard this morning, well, you'd think he saw the wrong letter on his passport. Let me put it that way.
Well, look, the White House had confirmed the existence of this investigation. What we've learned is that it's based in South Florida, headed by the U.S. attorney down there, and that a series of subpoenas are being prepared to go out to all kinds of people, in particular asking about how the 2016 or the 2017 intelligence assessment on Russian election interference was prepared. And
I love the internal outrage. These subpoenas are going out to all kinds of people. Well, yeah, wouldn't you want the investigation to be a thorough investigation? I would want all of the people relevant to the case to come forward and to testify. We'll let him continue.
The thing that's deeply ironic about that to me is I covered the original John Durham investigation, and at the time I was covering the CIA, and so many CIA officers and intelligence officers had to get lawyers, had to pay for lawyers to go in and be interviewed by federal prosecutors about the work that they did in assembling this intelligence assessment. And at the end of the day, in 2023, John Durham released a massive report, and he did not criticize at all the preparation of this intelligence assessment. And this was a man appointed by Bill Barr. This was a Donald Trump appointed special counsel investigation that exhaustively examined all of this.
Did not exhaustively examine all of it.
Where were the subpoenas back then that you could have complained
Director
then?
of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard did not fabricate. She just declassified documents showing that no, it was not an honest intelligence report. It showed emails on... Again, not to give you advice on how to commit crimes, but to give you advice on how to commit crimes. If you are going to commit a high-level state crime, do not do so via email. Do not do so on communicative devices in which there are substantial paper trails. Don't do it. Federal emails are automatically cataloged and assigned a permanent marker. It has been that way since the federal government started leaning into emails as a full form of communication from 2004 to 2006. It is very standard policy. And Brennan thinking, oh, no one's ever going to get me. This is going to work. We're going to get Trump. And then the next Democrat administration will be in. We'll bury it. We'll box it up, stick it in that weird mine in Pennsylvania where we put all of those AARP and government retirement account applications and probably the Liberty Medical postmaster when he's done filming the commercial. You know what I'm talking about. That's the kind of idea that Brennan had. And he goofed. He goofed because there happened to be a woman whose scorn was far more furious than hell itself, to quote Linus Van Pelt. And now I love the idea that, well, hey, I on MSNBC, I covered this personally. Yeah, that ain't making the argument you think there, Chief.
And the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane criminal investigation of the same ground and the question of whether the Trump campaign had colluded with Russia. And no major figure was charged with wrongdoing. And now this Justice Department wants to look at all of this again.
Wow, I mean, and the case that they make, and he continues on to make, is that because it's in Florida, Florida's going to do whatever they want. The Democrats love to demonize Florida. Oh, Florida, where all of the evil, terrible people are. Best of luck to you. Now, there was some legal analysis that came forward saying, I don't know where the sourcing for this grand jury subpoenas in Florida story is. Really, the order stated that the grand jury would be impaneled in January of 2026. Well, according to Real Clear Investigations at 6 p.m. this evening, a federal grand jury is now hearing evidence against John Brennan on conspiracy to commit perjury and other crimes. Now, some of these other crimes that are being considered, at least according to those who are familiar with the matter relating to the grand jury, include everything from the obstruction of justice to, yes, that's right, violating the Espionage Act of the early 1900s. Yes, that very one, as well as perjury, lying to Congress, and a number of other things that are going to throw his entire collected life works into discovery in the legal process. This matters for a couple of reasons we're going to get to on the live stream. Don't go anywhere. We got a big show tonight on the radio side. We're going to continue there. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. All right. Well, the radio crew is over in commercial land. Let's talk a little bit about John Brennan here, because just a week ago, he responded to some allegations about his behavior. For example, when he came forward and said, well, the intelligence community has assessed the Hunter Biden laptop story and has said it was just Russian disinformation. And John Brennan's response was not measured, unless we're measuring in metric tons. Here's John Brennan reacting to this question.
Why didn't you remember on the Hunter Biden laptop? Why say it? Because I think it. And you misrepresented that. We never said it was disinformation.
So he steps forward. He starts jamming his finger into the guy's chest. You misrepresented that. We never said disinformation, he says.
So it was Russian influence operations, which is what they do. There's a big difference between influence operations. No, you don't know that. Yes, Comey knew. Comey knew. The literature says.
So he starts to argue. John Brennan, realizing he's being filmed doing this and also lying, as we're going to point out in a second, he waddles off. I mean, I haven't seen a waddle this strong since the Aristocats did like the goose walk all the way to Paris.
All the hallmarks.
Now, according to Politico's quoting, there are a number of factors that make us suspicious of Russian involvement. Such an operation would be consistent with Russian objectives as outlined publicly and recently by the intelligence community to create political chaos in the United States and to deepen political divisions. And then a laptop op fits the bill, as the publication of emails are clearly designed to discredit Biden. Now, here's the fun part. He absolutely alludes, directs, and states that the Hunter Biden laptop situation was Russian disinformation. He did so. It is not, in fact, looking good for Brennan's record on honestly communicating on intelligence data. This is going to be one of the things that drives these particular issues home. Now, I do want to continue because while I would love to get to kind of some of the super chats and the thanks there are just so many news stories this evening. If we don't keep moving, we're going to get lost in the weeds. Federal prosecutors have also opened a corruption investigation into Washington, D.C. Mayor Muriel E. Bowser. Why? Because she took a foreign trip with members of her staff that was fully paid for by Qatar. Now, here's the problem. The particular issue in the case here, she served as the mayor since 2015, has potentially violated specific bribery and campaign finance law statutes. Because she claimed in a statement it was a business trip. DC representatives regularly travel to promote Washington as a destination for investment and for growth. All proper paperwork for this standard donation is on file. Here's the issue with that. The President of the United States has the right under the U.S. Constitution to fly to Qatar and to negotiate on behalf of the United States. The Secretary of State has the ability and the authority to do so. Even some secretaries of state at the state level have the authority, if properly documented, to go to other countries and to say, you should do more business with one of these United States. The mayor of a city does not have the authority to do this. They do not. And according to WJLA, Ms. Bowser and 4 members of her staff went to Dubai in 2023 for a United Nations conference on climate change. Not about encouraging growth and work in Washington, D.C. Political advocacy, flights, nonprofit payment statuses handled by the nation of Qatar. That's a problem. That's not the only interesting thing on the docket here. And I have 30 seconds till we bring the radio crew back, so I got to hustle. Right now, there are several groups suing Gavin Newsom and the state of California because after the passing of Proposition 50 and the redistricting in the state, it turns out now the gerrymandering of the state is likely based on racial means and is therefore likely to be struck down by the Supreme Court. That is a womp if I've ever heard it. A womp womp. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. Way more news. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. We're supposed to get started on an entire series of nonsense regarding journalists and the onset of Sharia law and CARE and all this other kind of corruption. Oh, no. We have far more legal cases to get to that are a series of probably decades-long headaches. We talked about John Brennan, the former director of the CIA, now a series of subpoenas. The grand jury down in southern Florida is hearing extensive evidence. And according to Mark Musser, Gavin Newsom, after the parade and excitement over Proposition 50, the redistricting effort, the gerrymandering effort in California, where Newsom says if Texas is going to redistrict, which, by the way, Texas has not officially started the redistricting process. He says, California, we're going to stop Donald Trump. We're going to stop him from pointing out that a lot of illegal immigrants make up the House of Representative constituency and that kind of situation regarding fraud in the last U.S. Census. So we're going to redistrict first. Well, it turns out that the redistricting process in California is now planning on gerrymandering the state along racial lines. So now several individuals and groups are suing the state of California, and this possible racial gerrymandering issue is now headed to a federal 3-judge panel and most likely to the Supreme Court of the United States. So incredible stuff there. We also talked about on the live stream side of things that Mayor Muriel Bowser is now being investigated over Qatar paying for a free weekend getaway so she could attend a climate change conference in Dubai, which is illegal.
I do find it very ironic. The flying, most likely a very large plane, a very long distance across many continents.
That's true.
For a climate change meeting.
Mm-hmm. Yep. A lot of CO2 emissions, unless she and her team got on one of those like bicycle pedal propeller machines they always show in the cartoons.
Around the world in 80 days.
Yeah. Excellent stuff. Well, speaking of climate change, there is a new deep concern on the way the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, the organization which oversees and reports on climate data, is actually getting a lot of their temperature data. So you'll see certain complaints from journalists wanting to fearmonger about climate change. They'll say the average temperature of the United States is rising and, it's getting drier and climate is getting more extreme and it's getting hotter everywhere. Well, according to a series of investigations that have gone on now for several years by former Lieutenant Colonel of the United States Air Force, John Shuchuk, 196 of the stations where the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration is supposed to be recording temperature and then sending that temperature data to the rest of the country for universities to rely on, for your congressmen and women. I'm just kidding. Your congressmen and women don't actually look at data. For federal bureaucracies to look at data and then issue rules
NASA.
On the climate. NASA, exactly. It turns out that this entire time, 196 of those stations are what are called ghost stations, meaning they're fabricating, they're making up the temperatures. So there are places in which you might have weather management data. So here is John next to his weather management equipment. Now, there's a lot of different rules in the science community that we have set up for putting a weather measurement apparatus into place and then making sure that it stays properly functional, that it's cleaned, that it's not being affected by any particular outside factors. And by the way, I want to make this clear. As a guy who was a former science teacher, we actually have a pretty great example of why you can't just stick a weather measurement device anywhere. Over to you, Tony. Thanks, Tony. One of the reasons our particular weather monitoring station on top of the studio, that would be right up there, is not allowed to be a NOAA atmospheric measurement device is it's about 1 foot above a very, very hot in the summertime asphalt roof, which means its temperature readings are never going to be quite accurate about 9 hours of the day. Why does this matter? Well, it matters because you have been told, because of all of these independent points of data in this beautiful information era of technology, that we have definable proof that the climate change crisis is here. It's going to kill us all. Therefore, what we need to do is get a bunch of orange paint and throw it on old paintings and statues. We got to send Muriel Bowser to Dubai on a jet right now.
Petroleum-based paint.
Yeah, oil-based paint. Incredible. And also, by the way, we got to get Greta Thunberg to Israel right now, or the climate's going to blow up.
Many flotillas to dump phones in the ocean.
Absolutely. Now, I do want to point out this investigation work by John Shuchuk. This is not a kind of a fly-by-night situation. He has taken it upon himself over the last couple of years to travel around the country. Ardmore, Oklahoma, NOAA ghost station. It's giving precipitation observations at a completely different location than where its temperature reading is supposed to be at. By the way, that was reported in 2009. The NOAA has done nothing about it. They're just like, well, we'll just make it up. In Port Townsend, Washington, a ghost station, coastal station, is not at all reporting any data from the site, yet NOAA's just making data up. So what's actually occurring right now is a legitimate case of fraud. Someone in the NOAA, not a political appointee, but kind of a lifer. And we've alluded to this, by the way, when last I was in Washington, D.C., that the NOAA, which is under the Department of Transportation, long story why the NOAA is under the DOT, but in short, Howard Lutnick is going through the NOAA and scraping through a lot of this false data. Williamsburg, Kentucky, ghost station. A rural observation station is not reporting any temperature data. And yet NOAA is reporting its own data that it's just making up. Weber Falls, Oklahoma. White River, Arizona. Here's a map for those on the live stream. All of the red dots, this is a year old, by the way. This particular map is a year old. These are all of the ghost stations that John had cataloged up until 2024. It is a gross misuse of taxpayer dollars, of course, but it is a deep injustice that you have been told if you don't believe the science. And by speaking as a former science teacher, data is paramount. That's why we have so many video clips we play on the show. Receipts are king. But if the receipts are made up, if I'm simply setting my printer to print out whatever it wants and then calling it a receipt, if I'm making up numbers from a weather station or sticking the temperature monitor right next to heat exhaust at one of the ghost stations or right on top of a black asphalt roof and saying, oh, this is the hottest summer on record, 126 degrees here in Indiana. No, it's not. That's lying. And just like the SNAP fraud, just like the FEMA fraud, just like the fraud in other education departments, other bureaucratic agencies in the federal government, this needs to be investigated immediately, and individuals need to be thrown in prison over this. That is under the purview of Congress. Producer Nick.
Yeah, as you were suggesting, the question here is not only what's wrong with the ghost stations, what's wrong with the stations that are set up currently. The fact that this has gone back to 2009 of issues not being addressed. How long have these stations been set up for where they haven't been calibrated, haven't been properly placed, haven't been maintained to actually record data in fact at all?
And the reason this bothers me is that I have received countless lectures from individuals as a guy who participates in the Sky Spotter stuff during storms. I was just talking about shortwave, long wave, high frequency radio stuff with producer Nick before the show. They make us jump through a lot of hoops for that crap. Just for NOAA to be making up the temperatures? The same people who say this science is just like the science. I want to know more about how the FDA and the USDA is coming up with their data now. And by the way, producer Nick and I are looking into, he's been doing a deep dive investigation on how far back some of this temperature fraud reporting goes. And we'll get to that. Sorry, radio crew. A lot of news tonight. We'll catch you after the commercial break. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal. There's just way too much to go through, time after time. All right, so on to a little bit of cultural nonsense that does deeply hurt my soul. There was a criticism of the Andrew Cuomo campaign in New York City that he was essentially the fall guy losing on purpose to Zohran Mamdani. And I thought that was kind of silly because Andrew Cuomo, you know, kind of an old moderate guy. This video has now surfaced by a radio station, a talk radio station in NYC, interviewing Bella Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo's niece, who ran his campaign. I want you to listen to what she says about the election I'm not suggesting he threw the election. Maybe this is just nepotism and, liberal women. But here you go.
Are you Bella Cuomo, Andrew Cuomo's niece?
Yes.
Wow, how are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. You know, we ran a great campaign, and no matter how it goes, we're winners.
Right. And so you're
No matter how it goes, we're winners. Okay, put down the orange slices, T-ball mom.
hoping for the best?
Obviously, I'm hoping for the best, but I feel good about what we did and the message that we put out. And you know, if you feel good about what you did, then you feel good about what you did.
How is candidate Andrew as an uncle?
He's a great uncle. I mean, we've definitely gotten closer. I actually had a really great time working for him.
I'm just going to make this clear. For those of you who are in maybe the middle-aged to elderly age in our audience, from that range, that half of life, you have no idea how common this is right now in college and kind of the 20 to 30 age on the ground. Ladies that act and talk like this and then demand to be taken seriously, it is so common, it is disgusting. Seriously. The number of individuals are going to be like, it's just kind of whatever. Campaign managers should be saying, these are the polls we're worried about. This is what we're looking for. This is why we're confident. This is what we are really hoping. We have these people out at these polls encouraging people to stay in line. There's established precedent for this kind of a thing. And that's not a male or a female thing, but there is this new weird age of women on the left who act just mamby-pamby flopping through life that have made it a lot easier for those who do in fact take advantage of large groups of people like Zohran Mamdani to just waltz in. And by the way, when I say waltz in, now you have journalists, influencers throughout New York City who are excitedly clamoring for Sharia law.
The name is Mamdani. M-A-M-D-A-N-I. The name is Mamdani.
Islamic Caliphate, our brother in Islam, Islamic Caliphate of New York.
Islamic Caliphate of New York.
Starts today, baby.
God, there is just something so electric, so satisfying about knowing that my MAGA parents, wherever they are probably having a horrible night tonight. Oh, I literally just got goosebumps thinking about it. Like they are in such a bad mood probably about the fact that Zohran just won and Prop 50 is gonna pass. Like, wow, God.
I mean, there's just one small problem with that. Just one slight malfunction, one might say. It's that all of that stuff that Zohran promised, all of those wonderful, amazing things, it's going to be affordable. New York's going to be amazing. Zohran is already out in front of everyone saying, oh, by the way, remember how I said you don't need to donate to me? Remember how I said you don't need to give me any money? Give me money.
Well, thank you for the question. It's transition2025.com. And, there were a few months ago where I told supporters across this city to stop donating. And today I am asking them to start once again. And I am asking them to do so because of the fact that a transition that can meet the moment of preparing for January 1st is one that will require staff, it will require research, it will require infrastructure. And those are things that we will have to provide. And I'm excited for the fact that it will be funded by the very people who brought us to this point, the working people who have been left behind by the politics of the city.
Working people who are living paycheck to paycheck. Give me money. Money, give me money. That took about 3.5 seconds. Incredible. Of course, the video of George Stephanopoulos asking him right before Election Day. So, you were all backing up saying you weren't going to raise taxes. You weren't going to be asking for money. Well,
let's dig into that, because you're talking about a rent freeze, you're talking about free buses, you're talking about free childcare. Can you do that without raising taxes?
I think you can do that, and I think you have to raise taxes on the top 1% of New Yorkers who make more than $1 million a year, and you do that by raising taxes by them 2%. And then you also increase the corporate tax of New York State to match that of New Jersey. So that takes us from about 7.25 to about 11.5%, which is what we see in New Jersey.
Wow. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. We'll see you in a second. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast here on the Daily Signal.
It's the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIPC.
Welcome back to the Tony Kinnett Cast, where the shenanigans are, in fact, in full swing. So, in Congress side, because again, the shutdown is getting a little bit more intense, not particularly exciting for those over on either side of the aisle, I would say. The approval rating of both the left and the right in Congress has been sinking steadily. Well, when you're dealing with a situation like this, getting Democrats, let's say over in the Senate, maybe even a senator from, let's say Democrat Senator Peter Welch, maybe getting him out in front of the country amid Hakeem's big healthcare debate and saying the actual problem is that Obamacare sucks. It has always sucked, and we failed because we told you Obamacare was going to make everything cheaper, and actually Obamacare has made everything a ton of money. Democrat Senator Peter Welch.
I owe you an answer on why it is I'm standing here today asking to extend something that was temporary. And here's the reason. We did fail to bring down the cost of health care.
So when I saw the suspicion from the Hill get in front of the country and say that Welch might be one of the Democrats who caves and ends up voting to end the shutdown, I thought, well, he's from Vermont. I don't see that happening. And then I get up here and go, I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was screwing everyone over.
We need you to continue our failure because it failed in the first place.
Yes. Now that right
so
there.
So coherent.
That's a strategy. That's incredible. Now, I want to keep going because it got worse in the Senate. Senator Rick Scott, Republican of Florida, tried to put a bill through that would make it so that right now, Congress, as long as the shutdown persisted, Congress would not get paid. Because right now, there's a lot of staffers. Right now, there are a lot of federal workers. Let's not forget air traffic controllers. We're going to talk about the air closures in the United States here in a couple of minutes. Right now, why does Congress get to be paid here? Wouldn't it be a bigger incentive for them to end the shutdown if they weren't being paid? So Senator Rick Scott, Republican of Florida, put forward a plan and a bill that would suspend Congress from being paid until the end of the shutdown. And wouldn't you know it, the Senate Democrats blocked that bill.
I rise today with my bipartisan and common sense no budget, no pay act. It's a simple proposal that says if members of Congress can't complete one of our basic jobs of funding the government, we shouldn't get paid. This shouldn't even be necessary. We should just do our jobs. But as we sit here over a month into the Democrat shutdown, it's clear we need something to hold Congress accountable. Every year we're tasked with putting together a budget with the expectation that it is on time and fits the needs of the American people.
But it never is. It never is. He said, look, we got to be accountable to the rest of the country. If there's no consequences for Congress, this is the classic argument. I've said this time and time again, why I believe the United States political system is, in the end, irreparable in its current fashion. Right now, you have unlimited privilege and next to no responsibility. Right now, there is an attitude in the country that if you just vote for something, it will automatically appear. Like if I just manifest it, it will just, wow. And my MAGA parents, they're just going to be so mad. And Congress, as long as they get the gravy train, and the rest of the government, the rest of the people that may require government pay, again, not just people who are participating in fraud on SNAP, some people that actually need SNAP. And I remind you also, including the troops. And yes, some of the essential workers in the TSA. And most importantly, air traffic controllers. Why does Jasmine Crockett get to cash a paycheck? Why does Mazie Hirono get to cash a paycheck? That's ridiculous. It is. Producer Nick.
Imagine being a staffer that stayed on through this because you truly believed in this as a Democrat staffer, and then having your boss around and go, well, I can't do this work without a paycheck. What am I, poor?
And this is the exact thing that we played that clip on the show last night. You actually had, and I can't remember which senator it is, one of the crabby, angry ones, who was griping at Bernie Moreno of Ohio because he said, what about your staffers? They getting paid? She's like, I'm donating my paycheck. He's like, that's not what I asked. I asked about the staffers.
And also, that's still a horrible excuse.
I'm donating my paycheck. Yeah, there are some puppies in an orphanage down on Fifth Avenue, not my staffers here, who can't afford the food. You know, I'm just sending it. I'm abroad, you know, that kind of thing. Planned Parenthood really needs the money right now.
Quite disconcerting if your paycheck is enough that you can donate it to pay all of your staffers.
Well, rest assured, producer Nick, there is enough money for Nancy Pelosi after a career of insider trading to get out and produce a I'm retiring video. Now, I will say, we already announced she was retiring. And by the way, I have kind of a classic problem of doing this. I am now 5 for 5 on announcing that there will be certain representatives or senators not running for re-election before they announce it.
What are you doing?
Shout out to Greg Pence. So sorry I announced that you were retiring from Congress like 2 months before anyone was supposed to know. Nancy Pelosi also announced it early, and I realize now what they needed the extra time for. She had to produce a Sarah McLachlan commercial, an ASPCA Nancy Pelosi is leaving video. We did not add the music to this. I want to make that clear. We did not edit this. This is pulled directly from one of the downloads from her YouTube channel. Here you go. Nancy Pelosi's video they posted of herself.
I speak for the people of San Francisco. I have truly loved serving as your voice in Congress, and I've always honored the song of St. Francis. Lord, make me an instrument of thy peace.
I don't think that if you're pro-abortion, you get to quote a saint's prayer in this, the Catholic Church.
I don't know about you, but I think St. Francis might not really appreciate that appreciation.
I was going to say, yeah, St. Francis, focus on healthcare and mothers. Ooh, yeah, that's one large yikes.
The anthem of our city. That is why I want you, my fellow San Franciscans, to be the first to know. I will not be seeking re-election to Congress. With a grateful heart, I look forward to my final year of service.
I'm amazed. I love the music. Hi, I'm Tony Kinnett. In these last 20 years in Congress, I've made lots of money by breaking the law. And my spouse, the one with a fascination for drunk driving, they also did a lot of insider trading. And that's why here, at the end of my 50 years in Congress, I look back and say, I hope you enjoy one more year of me screwing you over. I'm also reminding you, my district is San Francisco, the #1 export, poop. I'm Tony Kinnett. Thank you. I love it so much. Amazing. The optics of this are just beautiful.
Do you think it's more likely that she was completely sauced to film that or completely sober?
I think she was completely sober, because if she was sauced, she'd been like, what the heck? And then she would have made a trade for NVIDIA for $38,000.
She's
professional
a
drunk.
Veteran of it.
Okay. Yeah, I guess she can hold her liquor better than she can, hold the rosary. So that aside, I will say there is one Republican who embarrassed herself quite fully. Marjorie Taylor Greene decided this was the opportunity to get up in front of the country and go, Nancy Pelosi, I respect her. She got things done.
However, I will praise Nancy Pelosi. She had an incredible career for her party. I served under her speakership in my first term of Congress, and I'm very impressed at her ability to get things done. I wish we could get things done for our party like Nancy Pelosi was able to deliver for her party.
No, I'm sorry. I don't want Mike Johnson doing insider trading. I don't. I don't. I don't want, again, the idea that, the Democrats are being corrupt, so we need to be corrupt. No, I'm sorry. One of the things I like about the Republican Party right now, we're going to have to get into because over on the live stream, Radio Crew, we have to send you to commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett cast here on the Daily Signal. Live stream, we don't have to worry about that commercial nonsense. I really don't mind seeing Thomas Massey and pick a random representative out of thin air, Jefferson Shreve, wrestle on the floor of the House. That doesn't bother me at all. I don't mind seeing Dan Crenshaw and Mike Lawler from New York fight about fiscal policy. I like that it's out in the open. Right now, the Republican Party needs to figure out what it's doing. I want to see the libertarians, the traditional conservatives, the establishment, the more populist members of the Congress, I want to see them arguing it out in front of the American people. I don't want them to go behind closed doors and decide something and then come out and tell me how it's going to be. No, I want to see my representative in Congress fighting with the idiot from New York who's way too moderate and wants me to pay for their tax breaks. I want to see the moderate who thinks that abortion is okay at this time. I want to see them fight the representative from Alabama who knows that that's not what they were sent to Congress to do. Not have Nancy Pelosi go in the back and go, I'll give you 30,000 shares of NVIDIA if you pass this, and if you don't, I'll dump you in the back of a truck and Paul's driving. I don't want that. No! No! You don't have to do this. Now, since we're talking about Congress, I do want to point out that this is a great moment for Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin delivering a firm set of knuckles to Senator Blumenthal, the great Vietnam escape artist, in the Senate today.
Republicans are refusing to extend enhanced tax credits because they hate the ACA more than they care about the pain that.
You mean the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, or the Obamacare thing that old Peter Welch just got up and said sucked?
This move will inflict on families. Thank you.
So the ranking member has been incredibly disrespectful of these hearings. This is the fourth example of this. The rules allow for one witness from the minority unless they request an extra. And I've granted that request in the past. I had no idea that he was going to add another witness via video. After, I didn't really time it, but 8-9 minute opening statement, then adding another witness that he could have asked ahead of time. I probably would have granted the permission. He didn't do so. He probably had 3 or 4 more pages of his opening statement. He was going to filibuster for about 30 minutes. So that's what's happening here.
Well,
I wish I
had a half an hour more, but there's no way that I.
Again, you are just being.
You can hear, dude. I put probably more pomade in my hair than I should. You can hear the hair oil in Blumenthal's speech. That man inhales hair oil. I mean, a slimy, greasy used car salesman comes out. He sounds like he's about ready to scam your grandmother out of her coffin. That's what bothers me about this.
You could clean your teeth in the shine of his forehead.
My goodness. That's the Homer Simpson. My God, you're greasy.
Rude. As you've been rude as ranking member since I took over the chair. It's unfortunate. But I'd appreciate if you'd stop being rude, follow the norms of this committee, and if you want an extra witness, request it beforehand. And please keep your opening statements to a reasonable length of time.
Now, no one knows how to keep their opening statements to a reasonable length of time. Johnson just smacked him back and forth with the rules, and I want to see more of it. We got to bring the radio crew back from commercial. It's the Tony Kinnett Cast.
You're listening to the Tony Kinnett Cast on 93 WIBC.
All right, let's get into a little bit of the good, the bad, and the awkward. So, trying to be as transparent as possible with you guys, as is physically possible. I like to make it clear when I disagree with someone, or when I have a competitor in the particular sphere out there in the wide, broad world, or in case, whether I like them or I don't like them. When they do something good, I like to acknowledge it. When they do something I don't like, usually one of the reasons I don't like them, I'll also say it. Case in point, Benny Johnson today with Turning Point USA announced a legislative program they are going to be pushing to increase the affordability of housing for Gen Z and millennials in this country without going over to the socialist side of the aisle and how they do it. This is something that I know, incredible that we waited this long for it, but incredible props. And I'm dead serious about this. To Benny Johnson and to the TPUSA team for finally announcing this. Here's Benny.
Final thing I'm going to say here is that in the Constitution it says life, liberty, and the pursuit of property in certain other instances. And that's something that we've lost in this country.
He's correct. Do you know the reason why the pursuit of property is listed at times in early constitutional texts? Because there was a time in which your right to vote depended on your ownership of property. And so therefore, the pursuit of property is considered a core part of the American dream, because when you own land, when you own a home, you are invested in the community. You can't just skip out and go other places as easily like when you're renting. Johnson's right on the money here, no pun intended.
I'm particularly horrified that the American dream of owning a home is so out of reach for all of the young people here. If you are 35 and younger, home ownership rates are at 30%. That's down by half from a generation ago. And we need to fix that.
The reason it needs to be fixed, and I want to make this extremely clear, I very much sympathize with the youths of today having an entitlement issue. I very much do. But when a lot of our older folks in the audience were the age that today's home buyers are now, they were able to afford a home with a third of the income estimate total in gross and net. And though interest rates were high, for example, at the end of the Carter administration into the first year of Reagan, interest rates were really high. However, it was also far easier on a very low income job to afford a home, because homes, the materials, the labor, everything about them was cheaper. And there's a lot of reasons it's not that way anymore, but this is a definitive need. You really can't whistle past the graveyard on this one.
Who here wants to own a home one day? Yes. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm not one to break news in front of massive stadiums of people, but I want to announce right now a massive interagency and interinstitutional effort in order to encourage and provide resources from a massive federal level and a legislative level to ensure that we reignite the American dream for first-time young homebuyers. It will happen in this administration.
Now, I'm going to address a couple of things in the comments, which I don't usually tackle real time like this. The first thing that comes up that I've seen is, well, not everyone wants to buy or own a home. Great. I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to the general electorate who says they want to buy or own a home and they are unable to, partly because publicly traded corporations are able to buy up single-family residences in mass and then rent them out at extortionate prices. I'm sorry, that's the truth. That is the God's honest truth. The zoning and development laws in this country are also extremely restrictive. You can't just go out and build a home anymore. You have to jump through 536 hoops or go to an extortionate building company in a subdivision who is going to charge you premium price for likely illegal labor and crappy materials. So there need to be legislative efforts. Now, I'm going to make it clear to those out there who say that this isn't an issue they care about. Too bad. I, as a young person, care about your getting Social Security. I, as a young person, care about you being treated properly at an age of retirement. And so it is incumbent on those on the right to make sure that the youth care about those older than them and the older than them care about the youth. None of that's socialist, by the way. None of that's communist. None of that's entitled. Not a spit of it. And making that perfectly clear, it is incumbent on us in the Republican or the conservative or whatever movement you want to call it to raise up a generation that does not despise us for the idea they are being taken advantage of for political capital and then being given nothing in return. That is very useful stuff. Now, on the bad side of things, the Claudia Sheinbaum administration, no, maybe we can say this is bad and awkward. The Claudia Sheinbaum administration in Estados Unidos de Mexico has announced that they're not going to fight the cartels. They're not even going to get any foreign help from the United States or other countries in fighting the narco-terrorists. Why? I kid you not, because she says it would violate the rights of the cartels and narco-terrorists. Here's Claudia Sheinbaum.
Regresar a la guerra contra el narco no es opción.
She says, going to war against the narcos is not an option. First, it is outside the framework of the law. She's complaining about the right wing. She says on several occasions, it's permission to kill without any trial. If you go to war against the cartels who are wielding Kalashnikovs, Chinese-made, Russian-made, who are wielding fully automatic firearms, who are in open warfare against any who oppose them. She says, "Oh, if you can't arrest them, then it's illegal. It's outside of the law and it hurts their rights. If you are wielding open arms against the authorities, you have waived your rights." We deal with this quite often in regard to the difference between a protest and a riot. If you go out and you start setting fires and throwing rocks, you are committing an active crime. You are no longer entitled to the free transit throughout the area unmolested because you have committed an active crime. If you are a cartel member actively committing crimes, I'll say, "Oh, you don't know what's in this bag. You don't know unless you look in and then you arrest me. I'm not going to let you touch it. You don't know what's in this bag. You don't know if it's drugs. It could be Aldi's." No, sorry. I'm just not. The human rights argument in this case, it sucks. Stuff it. Bad take from Claudia, but I expected it. Radio crew, we're going to see you guys tomorrow. We're going to continue a little bit on the Tony Kinnett cast, a little bit of bonus tonus. We'll see you on the live stream. Y'all on the radio side, take care.
The bad part of that becomes even worse when you know that on the 3rd of this month, a mayor was murdered in front of his family. Carlos Manzo was shot at a festival after demanding tougher crackdown on the cartels. And so this was her response to this.
I really got to say, it looks, when you come out and tell the rest of the world you are not owned by the cartels, and then you give a statement like this and legal direction like this.
And anyone who suggests that you're owned by the cartels somehow is murdered by the cartels shortly after. Just making very, very, very clear the particular situation in Mexico right now. It's not in fact a wise move. And then of course we get to kind of the last of the really poor moves here. Right now, it's a good move legally. It is a bad look for the government of the United States. Unfortunately, it's the closing of airspace. So right now, there are a number of airports in the United States which are being limited by 10% in their reduction. Or excuse me, I'm trying to look up the actual list of cities here really quick. There are a series of airspaces in the country that are having their traffic levels reduced because air traffic control is limited in the amount of staffers that they can bring forward because they're not getting paid, as well as a series of restrictions due to things we were already struggling with, software that's outdated, airline stuff that's getting really rough and hairy. So at some point, I do believe that we're going to have to relook at how we're looking at air traffic control whatsoever. Whether that's giving it fully over to the National Guard and making that an actual definitive, because the FAA is a federal regulated program. If they're going to operate tower space, then at some point you're actually going to need, either the federal government's going to run it or they're not. And why air traffic controllers are not already considered essential employees to be paid is, I know it goes back to the Reagan era strike, of which again he threw in the National Guard. It's quite a serious issue. So now, I do want to round up the show such this evening by talking about one particular story from today that is getting a lot of coverage, but it's stellar stuff. GQ, Gentleman Quarterly magazine. Gentleman Quarterly used to be about being a gentleman and how to dress and what to drive. Athletics. That's what I always,
GQ used to be excellent for a lot. It was supposed to be a magazine read by men. Now,
on the toilet.
It is, of course. Now it is one of the places that these goober journos go to write their silly, pathetic, not likely to be read or watched articles and interviews. Case in point, Catherine Stoffel sat down with Sydney Sweeney for GQ. So if you're going to interview Sydney Sweeney for
there's
GQ,
a lot to talk about.
There's a lot you can talk about. There's a lot that's very interesting to men about Sydney Sweeney for men in GQ. So what does Catherine Stoffel, who they decided to hire at GQ for some reason, choose to ask Sydney Sweeney about? Well, she was asked if it was okay to actually do the having good genes, my parents have good genes, I have good genes commercial for American Eagle, and if she wanted to apologize for the controversy around white supremacy. Sydney Sweeney's response is stellar. Check it out.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
That's how to handle that, by the way. When there's an issue that I want to speak about, you'll hear about it. No, I don't need to sit here and apologize. I'm so sorry that someone out there said it was eugenicist or whatever. Ridiculous. Producer Nick.
I want to know what happened in between the switch of the frame. There was a jump cut there. They cut off the rest of her sentence as she was moving through that. And I want to know what awkward silence and then quick explanation of the intention of the question happened there.
I'm not sure if we have the longer clip here.
I'm literally in jeans and a t-shirt like every day of my life.
Jeans are uncontroversial. Jeans are awesome.
Yeah, I like your jeans.
You look great in your jeans.
This is painful.
I think I know how you're going to answer this, but I'm going to...
Oh, okay. Here we go. So, by the way, that wasn't some kind of a prompt like we've written beforehand. We actually just did have the longer clip ready to go. Normally we keep them a little shorter for the show.
But now it's bonus time.
I think I know how you're going to answer because I look like a thumb and you're a model. And so you're probably not going to apologize for how evil you are. I think about you when I get home. This awkward interview is just, ugh.
Ask anyway. I mean, the president tweeted about the jeans ad, or Truth Socialed about the jeans ad. And that just seems to me like a very crazy moment for anyone. And I wondered what that was like.
It was surreal.
It was surreal.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be totally human. I would probably feel like thankful that somebody had my back in public, you know, and conveniently some very powerful people had my back in public. And I wondered if...
I like the reaction from Sydney is like a polite laugh and then an eyebrow raise because believe it or not, it does take a little bit of skill to set your opponent up to fall on the knife. It takes a little bit of skill and how to lead people through getting through a particular conversation. You see, the investigative journalists have to negotiate this. How do I get you to say the thing that we both know is happening, but you say it in a damning way that cannot be wiggled out of on the microphone? Now, this particular, whatever, you know, Catherine Stofers, I don't particularly know what it is that...
She's afraid of the question itself.
Yeah.
The way that her voice continually uplifts at the end of each word.
Even she recognizes how like embarrassing this is, and yet she's still going to try to go.
I really don't want to ask this question.
If you felt that way.
Sorry, the question she asked before we paused and talked was, are you glad that powerful people had your back? I know I'd be glad if powerful people had my back in a controversial situation. Are you glad about that? And she just goes, like this question's pretty freaking weird.
I don't think that it's not that feeling I didn't have that feeling, but I wasn't thinking of it like that.
There was tons of societal support for Sydney Sweeney before Trump even saw the ad. The idea that everyone was against Sydney Sweeney, and it's like Trump's like, hey, wait a minute. I was watching CNN and they were attacking Sydney Sweeney. No, he didn't do it. They were already, the momentum was already in her direction.
The majority of the populace not only was in support of the ad, enjoyed it quite a lot.
And not only did so, roasted the living tar out of the morning show that suggested the eugenics stuff. Rightly so.
Or like of any of it. I kind of just put my phone away. I was filming every day. I'm filming Euphoria, so I'm working like 16-hour days, and I don't really bring my phone on set, so I work and then I go home and I go to sleep. So I didn't really I don't really see a lot of it.
You've made a really good case for keeping your thoughts and your life separate from that work. But the risk is that, there's a chance that somebody will get some idea about what you think about certain issues and feel like, I don't want to see Christy because of that. Like, do you worry about that?
No.
The criticism of the content, which was basically that maybe specifically in this political climate, like, white people shouldn't joke about genetic superiority. Like, that was kind of like the criticism, broadly speaking. And since you are talking about this, I just wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that specifically.
I think that when I have an issue that I want to speak about, people will hear.
So there is still that kind of a jump, but the audio you can hear carries through. So they didn't cut out a whole lot. It was her like straight through answer, but just a weird
horrible
thing to
line
ask.
of questioning in the first place.
Yeah, I agree with the comment. Horrible interview. Really foolish. Now, that particularly said and finished out here at the end of things for the evening, the kind of flip side in how the Democrats over in the journalistic sphere are doing, they're really struggling. And when I say they are really struggling, I bring up, regrettably, Aaron Rupar, a very sad little bald man, who today got a picture up of, I believe it was RFK Jr., who in a panel today, there was a staffer or a member of the administration, someone who was present, who passed out. And so as people were starting to, basically lower him to the ground, he was passing out, you lock your knees. And I think there was like a concern of cancer. He's dealing with a medical issue at the very least. True. So RFK Jr. then quickly exits. We'll play the video here in just a moment. And Aaron Rupar says, and I quote, RFK Jr.'s response to someone collapsing nearby was to haul ass out of the room as quickly as possible, end quote. Now that's quite a thing to say. And then I did what any normal person would do. He, of course, posted a screenshot and then the video. Here's the actual video in full. We can actually see what RFK Jr. was doing here.
And creating high-value jobs. But today we... Oh, are you okay? Gordon, you okay?
So RFK Jr. is on the right side of our screen, stage left. And he walks away.
Yeah.
May I also point out Donald Trump's reaction?
Trump is standing there after, I believe, pointing at two individuals in the room.
Press out. Press. We're going. Thank you, press. Press. Cameras. We're done. Camera.
Now, what did RFK Jr. do when he walked out of the room? He went to find medical help.
I brought up what Donald Trump was doing because people also took a picture of the situation and framed Donald Trump as uncaring and uncompassionate because it was framed in a way to suggest that
he was just standing there and
away.
watching.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And no, the very first thing that happened is that Trump pointed at two people immediately
to handle the situation.
And then RFK Jr. got out of there to go get medical help. And that has been confirmed, not just by right-wing sources, but left-wing sources. RFK went to go get medical attention. The liberal journalist influencer desire right now to say that you can never just have a person just do something normal and okay and good. They have to be Hitler. Their obsession with making the right out to be Hitler. You saw this with Zohran Mamdani with the bomb threats, right? There were bomb threats in the New Jersey areas. Later, it was a minor arrested playing a hoax prank. Zohran Mamdani got out in front of the public and said, it's Donald Trump's fault. He's doing this. There's no reason for that. There really isn't. And yet the left's desperation, you saw this with Jay Jones, right? The left's desperation to end up making it about electing whatever violent, evil, disgusting rhetoric, calling for violence, laughing at violence, accusing people of being pure evil. Oh, he ran away to save his own skin from the guy passing out. Doesn't make sense when you think about it for a few seconds.
In conjunction with this, deep down, it's the criticism of being calm and collected during a, actual crisis. They want them to stand around and scream. What response did you deem appropriate here?
Now, this kind of really stupid coverage isn't really only on the left. There's a little of it over on the sort of right. There's an article today by Scott Greer, who chews on his own elbows from time to time, over at the American Conservative magazine, called, quote, "No, Zohran Mamdani isn't a third worldist. The next mayor of New York City subscribes to a thoroughly Western ideology." Now, that's a clickbait title because he is a third worldist. I mean, he spends a lot of time talking about how important it is for all of these people that are terrible victims of colonialism to come in and tear down the system of capitalists. He talks about that openly. Any actual normal individual recognizes that Mamdani is 100% a third worldist, meaning he's trying to bring the third world into the United States and to tear down the United States system. Eating the rice with the hands. Oh, my auntie wasn't allowed to wear
It's just like pizza.
Yeah, that kind of nonsense. So the argument made by Scott in AmCon, I kid you not, is that, well, Mamdani is really just a theater kid and he's woke. He's okay with American global hegemony. He just wants, or hegemony, excuse me. He just wants it to be woker. I'm gonna level with you here. Someone can be stupid on social policy and still be third worldist on economic and other social policy. It's not an either or. It's not. Just gonna level with you here. And by the way, what does this article really have to do with? Oh, that's right. In order to, he says, the article primarily focuses on Mamdani's opposition to Israel rather than his socialism. Well, yeah, because he said that he refused to condemn Hamas and said that he refused to say if they should disarm after the Trump peace accords, in which Hamas was at the time shooting other Palestinian Gazans.
He won't condemn global Antifada.
Won't condemn globalize the Antifada. Correct. So here's his claim. It says, "This strongly implies the purpose of popularizing the term is to sell a new version of neoconservatism to American right-wingers. In order to defeat woke, we must apparently back Israel against the mullah's cancel culture." Okay, I'm going to level with some of those on the far right this evening. I'm going to level with you just a bit here. Those on the, not the socialism side, the national socialism side. Your obsession to make anything and everything ever at all about Israel, everything is about Israel. Yeah, that lets us all know that you're just as retarded as you sound. You are. That is the stupidest thing I've ever. Well, he's actually just woke because secretly, he's really super Jewish Israeli. Okay. By the way, later on down the article, and this is my personal favorite, quote, "Israel is also not really fighting for the West. It's solely concerned with its own interests. It's not at war against mass immigration, Chinese encroachment, or anything else that directly concerns the West." Okay, first of all, just objectively not true. There are elements of Western culture that in the Middle East only appear in Israel. Now, how do I have the authority to say that? I've been to most of these Middle Eastern countries. I've been in Turkey, the most Western of the Muslim nations. It is not a Western nation. There's nothing Western values about it. Israel, yes. And I have criticisms of the Israeli government. Of course you can criticize the Israeli government, 110%. But the idea that you're going to make the Mamdani election is really about, if you're calling Mamdani a third worldist, really, it's secretly, actually, it's all about Israel. Yeah, sure, he said, he wants to empty the prisons. Sure, he said that, when in his big speech, it was about every single nationality he could list that he considered to be black or brown coming into the United States and tearing down capitalism, but that's not third worldist. Sure, that's the exact thing that the Osama bin Laden organization said was their goal in the United States, for those from the third world to come into the country and to overthrow the American government, to overthrow the system that perpetuates colonialism.
I mean, it's not like a whole bunch of third world countries funded him.
Oh, yeah, that's the best part. The best part is that according to representatives from CARE, and of course, Linda Sarsour, formerly of the Women's March, CARE donated heavily to Mamdani's campaign.
I speak
Oh, sorry, that that caught me for a second there. No, here we go. Here's the Linda Sarsour.
Right now, I'm a little more quiet because I'm on the quiet side of this race, but I'm going to tell you that once November 4th comes around, I will tell the story. The story is not just that it's random that Zohran ascended to this place. It is our Muslim American communities. And I'll also say that it's Muslim money. The PACs that have supported Zohran, or a particular PAC that has supported Zohran, is probably over 80% of Muslim American donors in this country. High net donors, grassroots donors. And I want to make the point that the Unity and Justice Fund PAC, which is the CARE Super PAC, was the largest institutional donor to the pro-Zohran PAC in New York.
Oh, wait, there's one other thing. The Zohran Mamdani campaign had to give back foreign donated money after it was investigated and found out, they took foreign dollars. So all of the whole, it's actually not third worldism. It's just a ploy so that Scott Greer, again, when he's not chewing on his elbows and licking drywall, can say it's really about the Jews. Okay, okie dokie. All right, that's real special, buddy. Okie dokie. So yeah, the stupid writing and interviews and just bad journalism in general is bad all over today. Last but not least, Bushra Shaikh. I'm whatever. You guys know I can't pronounce certain kinds of last names. A legal and immigration analyst says, quote, "Despite what gets spun, Sharia law isn't this evil, misogynistic medieval system that oppresses women. In its full ethical understanding, Sharia law upholds justice, human rights, equality, gender equity, and robust crime deterrence. In many elements, Sharia would be far more effective than current civil law." That's some advanced stupid right there. And by the way, CARE National then released a video as well saying that Sharia law is not even a foreign legal system. It's a moral and spiritual path in which men are legally allowed to marry 9-year-old girls and they can't run away or divorce. They're individuals who are Islamic, who have escaped from Sharia law countries and have come to Western countries, have laid out the details of Sharia law. You know who else has laid out the details of Sharia law? Sharia law countries who are very open, who brag about it openly.
Are they going to try and repackage it? Sharia life. It's a lifestyle.
Yeah. In fact, if either in life, either you're a Zionist or you're in favor of Sharia law.
Oh, you got to choose.
Yeah, just
that was really good. Sorry to break the fourth wall here. That is one of the best ones he's pulled out in quite a few days, and on the spot like that, it's actually quite impressive.
Well, I'm sure that we will be refuted and fact checked as soon as Candace has a dream about it. So
I'm just noticing.
Just noticing. Anyway, those particular things said, we're going to end our coverage this evening and wish you all a fond, wonderful time. Beware of Zionist, woke, whatever. When you're criticizing Zohran Mamdani, don't accidentally call him a third worlder. As we all know, nothing is more American than apple pie and eating rice with your hands. I'm Tony Kinnett, and this has been the Daily Signals Tony Kinnett Cast, nationally syndicated and first on 93 WIBC. Take care.